What about that? Why a politician has to have so many microphones? So you already made up your own. We were still, believe it or not, I will, talking about how man, especially his intellectual secondary world, is a form of a self-regulating, self-referring system, and specifically, right where sort of we were leaving, is that it's got to be quite clear enough that the human body, if we look at that as being separate from the mind, is strictly, at any sane level, self-regulating. And in that same sense, I just wanted to be clear what I'm trying to point out, that what I'm calling self-referring is the intellectual form of self-regulation. That it is not merely playing with words, and it is not that dissimilar from what a thermostat would be doing with a furnace and what one's bladder would be doing in regards to other unsavory things we don't want to talk about. Or your stomach growling, contracting when it's hungry, and when it gets full, saying. The operations of the intellect are involved with the same thing, and all forms of self-reference are, in fact, a form of self-regulation. Now, the easy way that it is for people throughout history to attack their fellow man for being purveyors of palaver, being blabbermouths, flapping their gums, talking too much, all the way from the most simple level between two guys staying at a bar over a beer to people philosophically discussing the matter that men talk far too much. That if you listen to most of what is being said, it's a waste of time. Now, a large part of it, I'm speaking now from many ordinary views, and a large part of it is made up of people just bragging about themselves, trying to blow their own horn. People all the time, now I'm ordinary and I could be pointing back to us and saying, in fact, some of the stuff you're talking about this self-referring, that's what people do. Constantly you try to ask somebody, what's going to happen to the stock market? The man says, well, it's interesting you asked me that because it's only been about 6 months ago when I lost. Who the hell cares? I didn't ask you what happened to you. You talk too much. I asked you for some expert opinion. Well, I was trying to get to you because I was doing real well last year until I don't want to hear about that. Or you ask a man, what do you know about matters of history, philosophy, psychology, and what will they do? Almost inevitably, they'll start off, well, as I used to tell some of my students, I didn't ask you what you used to do. I asked you for a damn simple opinion. I asked you for some information. So, ordinary life could say that men, and there are all sorts of much more subtle aspects of that, as all of you should know, and you've done it yourself, of thinking people talk too much. Specific people, and if you are a more magnanimous, wise-ass philosopher, social observer, you may be even past the fact that my first wife, my second husband, I got a great aunt, will talk the paint off of a goddamn bathroom wall. Jesus, I didn't know I was going to strike such a nerve. And those out in TV land, I should apologize. Many localities have asked us to watch the language, so I'm sorry I said bathroom. I know. Anyway, you can quite easily, if you're passing for being intelligent at all, you go from being just a generalized social critic, a specialized, to being generalized, because you can say without any doubt, and you could attempt to pass yourself off as being what? Oh, intelligent. For being intelligent. Because you could be saying, well, it's nothing personal to me, and I'm not upset about anyone in particular, but people simply talk too much. I mean, if you don't have anything to say, be quiet. This is not... This plays a part now, as all of you should know, or it wouldn't be doing it. It plays a part in the apparent continuing struggle in the secondary world between people, between ideas. But this is, from a more complex view, if you're outside the limits of that general floodplain, it would be akin to telling people, you know, you urinate too much, you spit too much, you breathe too much, you eat too much. And I don't mean because you're overweight. You get hungry too much. The talk of humanity, as easy as it is, that's enough of me beating that. But all of you, without any doubt, know exactly, because it's part of your own nervous system. It is natural and it's not psychological. It is much deeper than that, but it comes out verbally, of people feeling as though their fellow man, and they don't have to get excited enough to holler profanity like bathroom and great aunt, but men continually feel as though they're surrounded by too much talk. You know, if it's not off the radio, it is off of other people. It's just people yammer, 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 and most of it is uncalled for. It doesn't prove anything, and it's not true. It is not true. Every time a man expresses his opinion, every time he talks, but I wanted you to see very specifically, the opinionated self-reference that we've been talking about of people almost being incapable, the human mind, I should say, instead of people, because I say people, then you take it personally. It's almost incapable, the ordinary mind, of passing along what the dictionary calls objective information, unless, of course, it's simply 7 o'clock, 2 blocks down, hang a left, that sort of thing. No. But other than that, if you ask the world's leading expert, you ask a rabbi, a pope, a mathematician, and no matter how intelligent they appear to be in the normal scheme of things, in some way, if it's going to be a little more than just a 1 or 2 word answer, if there's really going to be any sort of apparent social dance between you and the person, any sort of real dance. When I say social, it could be business, but what I mean is that you and them seem to react, that you do dance a few steps. If you do that, the person, no matter if they're an expert, the person is going to be involved with self-reference. And if we carried this far enough, which is what I was trying to push you for the last few days, for you to sit on your own, we could push it enough that if I said this is some sort of new theory or some attempt to, look through a different hole somewhere, then you could, on your own, say, well, even experts talk too much, and if you're going to pass along any sort of useful information, you should be able to extract your own ego from it. You should stop referring to yourself. At the ordinary level, that is not so. At the ordinary level, that would serve no remedial purpose. It would serve no healthy purpose. Because contrary, people talking about themselves, opinionated self-reference, is a natural, it is a necessary form of intellectual self-regulation. Because every time the ordinary mind is referring to itself either directly or indirectly, which it's doing continually, every time it does that, it's the same as the people with even cruder hobbies hanging around the tracks and the YMCA and carrying along these machines to check their own thing, go do, this, always, how do I feel? How do I look? Those kind of people that health is a hobby. The mind is doing that continually. The secondary world in a man is doing that continually, and it is doing it properly every time it refers to itself, every time it offers any opinion. And it can be as opinionated, it can be as biased, it can be as crude, it can be as one-sided as somebody else might consider as possible. But it doesn't matter, because to that person, it is a form of self-regulation. Since it doesn't cost anymore to take one more step, since Benson and Hedges, what was that great folk duo? Since they broke up, one step over the line, sweet Jesus. I'll go ahead and say it, because I could go ahead and say, although it's not psychological, I could go ahead and say this. The basis of a man's self-reference being the intellectual self-regulatory system if it were simply psychological, it would be like this. The man has to continually, he doesn't have to say I or me because it can be inferred. But he is continually referring to himself, and it's like a form of continual checking of, am I sane? Am I here? It is the regulation of the intellectual system. If any of you doubt this, I didn't know we were going to deal in shock therapy. Anyone might doubt that. Here's all you got to do. You need another hobby, is try this. It's always wonderful to deal with, not you people, but assuming ordinary people, because I was going to say, now you're going to say it's real hard, and boy is it hard. I mean, it's as hard as what? What I was going to say was, if you doubt this, is all you got to do, let's be reasonable, 48 hours maybe, is don't refer to yourself. Now, it doesn't count to hide out and be a hermit. Go about your ordinary business and don't refer to yourself, and you will find at that level it is unnatural. It is like going without food. It will make people irritable. It's like a caffeine junkie. It will. It is simply unnatural. Now, many of you know this indirectly and in other ways, but it is unnatural. And if you do it around other people in the incorrect way, other people don't even like it, and they don't know why. That's no big deal, but there are little shows of this in history. This is no proof, but when I say that it pops up every now and then, this is not necessarily the heart of it, but the story is like Jesus refusing to answer charges. Socrates, spent a couple hundred pages, or a lot of pages pointing out that he wasn't going to answer charge. Which I'm not taking a shot at good old Sock, because he did still pull off the same thing, understand, because he spent the time really not responding personally. And it does not fit in, may I put it this way, it does not fit into the normal scheme of expectations to city minds. And they don't really know why. That's just sort of extreme examples, which is what literature is for those priests and novelists from last time still worried, you recall. About that one reality, you remember that. They decided that no one could practice medicine until they could heal themselves. No one can refuse to refer to themselves until they can refuse to refer to themselves. Yeah, but that didn't sound right. It would be, I'll leave it to back up, at what would be a psychological description, if we were forced to be that crude, that a man continually referring to himself. And one more time, it does not have to be verbally. A man does not have to just keep saying I and well I think, because as long as he is dealing with collective knowledge, as long as he is dealing with that which is rational and sequential, then he is dealing with opinionated point of view. He is dealing with self-reference, because that's the only basis that an ordinary mind ever gets activated. It is fed by the fuel, since it didn't get a lot of laughs tonight, which is a form of reaction about that place when, this one reality, when their car misfires, they're inclined to take serious shots at service station attendants. I was saving parts of that coming up. That's where we're trying to lead to, but consider it. Consider the two possibilities along those lines. At any rate, the ordinary person, they do not have to say I, they do not have to be engaged in some overt, obvious, verbal egotism, shows of egoism, as long as they're referring to ordinary thought, as long as they are thinking what they're supposed to think, no more. As long as they're doing that, it is based upon self-reference. Because if you stop the person, whether it be an uneducated man expressing an opinion that you could say has no basis in fact, for him expressing an opinion of what he thinks is going to happen in the next election in Bulgaria, and you find that the man has a 4th grade education and is a mud boy, not even a bricklayer, and you think, How ridiculous. It can either be that, or it can be a man from the Brookings Institute who is specialized, who is an expert in Eastern European affairs post-WW2. In either case, the people must refer to themselves. If you say to the uneducated guy, where in the hell do you get off trying to tell me what's going to happen in politics in Bulgaria? In fact, I'd be inclined to bet you don't know where the hell it is. You know, talk about pretentious. You're making an ass of yourself, sir. Either that, or this man all dressed up in a suit, a man who is an expert, a man. If you ask either one of them, where do you get off the nerve doing this? Of course, they might react in two different ways. You know, the first guy might punch you in the nose or something. Their reaction is always going to be this. And it does not have to come out verbally, but the reaction is that they simply check back on themselves. Like, where do you get off the nerve saying this? And where they get off the nerve saying that is because it's them. I mean, where are they going to look if you say, how in the world can you be so stupid as to say that? That's like asking a man, aren't you embarrassed to be standing on the bottoms of your own 2 feet? I mean, if in some way you can make him go, well, yeah, I am. Then I guess, of course, if nothing else, you start a new religion. You know. Charge him quick before he comes to his senses. But you're asking him, what you're asking an ordinary mind to do is be something other than you are. But it, as always, due to what self-reference also is tied into, is the collective thinking establishes in part of human speech, if you recall, we've been through sort of before, is in part to establish that which apparently is an external source of authority, of power. Because ordinary people is the only reason I raise my voice and talk squeaky. Of ordinary people, well, it gets so tricky to see. Is look at it. All you got to do is check yourself. You don't have to think about my political experts and my pretentious bricklayers. Everything you know. I mean, if we're going to play too obvious. Everything you know you got somewhere. And where did you get it? Out there. And the only difference seems to be that this uneducated guy, when you say you got it out there, you say where? And he's not even sure. You find out he grew up in Hair-Nose County, Mississippi, and you find out he's never been 5 miles away from home. Plus you find out that he didn't have a high school, so you know he didn't go there. So then you would think from one view, all right, whatever you got it from such a limited, such a parochial environment that you're not even worth talking to. No, you could take that view. But what's the difference between that and this man who is the expert? Now, of course, you're ordinary, you'd say, what's the difference? You know, get out of here. The man went to Harvard. The man that did work at Oxford. So, the first guy got his, God knows where. I mean, if we're going to talk about, Hair-Nose County, he got it from, a couple of uncles and, part of his other inbred in-laws or who knows what. The guy down at the county store. And so you can say, yeah, that figures. So where'd the other guy get his? Well, he got his from other educated people. All right, from the ordinary view, that is fine. That's the way things go. But do you hear? Both of those guys don't know anything. Now, that's just between you and me. And I would certainly deny it if they tried to poison me with Socrates' leftover blood or something. No, I deny I ever said that. But you do see, don't you? Everything that everybody knows at the ordinary level, they got from the collective pool. They got from collective thought, and it's just at street level as it's supposed to be to keep the seesaw working, to keep the little thing going down the... Someday I guess I'll find out those toys must have a name, but... It's like an intellectual slinky, I guess. It's only at the city that it appears, as it should be, as I said, to have some importance, or else no one would ever go to school, and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, that's the way things are, but you must see that everybody looks to an external source of authority. Now, if we were going to cut it back to what would be the primary level, it wouldn't be so. Well, we couldn't talk about it, but even Kyroot tried to tonight. For those of you that missed that, I'll back up and give you another one. It's only in the kingdom of the human mind that would-be potential lions are allowed to be led by practicing jackals. Now, if you could cut off man at this level, if you could, then your heroes, those people whom you would follow physically, and you would if we were back playing caveman, those kind of cartoons, somebody in every cave, somebody in every locale would be in charge. And they'd be in charge not dissimilar to how one wolf takes over a pack or one baboon takes over a pack. You get into the intellectual level, though, follow this, and it would seem that it's only there that undeserving leaders, would-be leaders, can apparently take charge. Now, I'm saying apparently, because you've got to remember there was also another Kyroot that if you knew what you were doing, all sentences began silently with the word apparently. That's a given. But it would appear to be that it's only, you do follow, if we were back to the very primary level, and there are relative areas, there's still people on this planet right now that are further, much further back in the time zone of evolution, relatively speaking, than we are. Everybody knows that, it's on National Geographic. And in such an area, and they may talk, everybody on this planet will now assume talk and got a secondary side of their nervous system going, but it's still on the basis, whether they actually beat up everybody, it's still on the basis, you should be able to smell this or hear it, of much closer to simply the genetic scheme of things makes one man / wolf, lion in some area that suddenly he's in charge. Now somebody may come up and they may physically challenge him, some younger guy, and they may not actually physically challenge him, but they get into posing and just talking and kicking and spitting, and somebody's in charge. And at that level, genetically, whoever's in charge should be in charge, because he can whip everybody's ass. Now, he doesn't have to physically, but genetically, in that one little group, he is wired up to kick everybody's ass. And if somebody else comes along and can kick his ass, they should be in charge, whether they physically have to do it or not. Now, apparently, man's intellect is the only area where what? We're sissy. We're weak. Where undeserving thoughts can apparently get in charge. That can take potential lions and allow them to be led around by what appears to be practicing active jackals. It's hippos being led around by gnats. Apparently. Now that's just, we're talking amongst us now. Well, of course, out in life, I could get a lot of people to agree to that. Because it's just back to, boy, life is going downhill, and that's right. I'm smart. I should be running this country. You're right. It's run by a bunch of pygmies intellectually. Boy, if the world ever wises up, I'll be rich and I'll be in charge. Right, sir? We're all going to hold our breath. Yeah. But there is a kind of genetic struggle going on intellectually that the ordinary mind can't see or could see how things are arranged anyway. But what happens is internally, you start talking about self-reference, and people will attack themselves. They will adopt these kind of external that used to come from religions. The idea is that, wait a minute, you should not refer to yourself so much. You should not believe that you're the center of the universe. You should not think that everything that you know is right. Because as long as you're dealing with an external source, then all collective people, all ordinary people, are subject. They are in an indefensible position, because you say you should not consider that all of your opinions are correct. And a man says, why? Now, what do you do? It's according to what part of the city you're wired up for. It's according to how many alternatives he wants. Because you can pick up any holy book, any Vedic-Mecum at random, and open it up somewhere, and there it says. And if that don't work, you can pick up almost any book on mental health. And if that doesn't work, you can say, Holy Mother, everybody knows that. You can't go around acting like that. Just ask your mother. Ask your father. Ask anybody. They know you can't do that. It is the collective thinking that if there's anything worth knowing, if there's anything resembling objective standards for behavior which is the first level, and then after that, recall, after they established the behavior police, then those in that position immediately begin to plan. They've been doing it for thousands of years. They begin plotting of, now we got this. What we need to do is set up an auxiliary squad, the Red Dog, Mad Dog Patrol for Thought. Because now they already put us in charge of looking after behavior, which is what you would have of the kind of wolves that would at least be at the second or third level, or with a head wolf, that he's got in charge of sicking everybody physically. You know, don't go here too close to my food. Don't get too close to my bitch. Female wolf. And so then they begin to plot, as they should, because it's simply life trying to evolve. Well, now we're in charge of behavior. They put us in charge, which more or less you do, because the wolves, everybody, if they're not going to be the leader of the pack, they want to what? They want to be dipped. They want to be danced. Everybody's looking for the big guy. Everybody's looking for some big old father, some big old grown person to put you in their lap and to go, good boy. And the first sign that you show of, you know, getting out of line, they give you a little slap. Firm, but fair. I'm glad you folks have a sense of humor. Because if you don't be in charge of the pack, you want one thing. You want to be dipped. You want somebody to lead. No, that's just simply the way it is. Back to the collective. That being so, people want an external source of authority. Not that they got any choice. It's why people will not resist it. It's why the ordinary mind cannot see me pointing out, especially going to all the trouble to make a damn hand gesture and to say that people will not see that everything they know they got from somebody else. Well, all right. They got externally. Well, yeah, but by God, I spent damn near $100,000 on my education. So don't just laugh it off. You are looking, as you should, for the collective thought of man. You're looking at that which is the induced system of self-reference as being the head of the pack, that you submit to it. You got no choice. Well, ordinary people, remember one more time, I'm not here preaching a sermon. If I am, I ain't getting paid. Where's that money? Where's them letters? You are looking for the external. Everybody is. Well, except a few people. Because they want to hear, what should I do next? What should I do if my mother dies? What should I do if I lose my business? What should I do if they do have to cut off my foot? What should I do that I'm worrying, I'm going crazy at night? What should I do? And if you just hear, it sounds like somebody says, come here and dance with me. In other words, somebody just says, well, what you should do is light a candle and wait 2 days and forget it. And that doesn't sound bad. I mean, after 20 years of suffering, you go, what? And you go, why do you say that? And they go, because I have a secret document here. That's what God said. That's what the collective wisdom of Cambridge, they worked on this in their spare time. That's what you want to hear. It's what the ordinary mind wants to hear. It is the form of self-regulation. Another subtle, but perhaps obvious, look at it this way. If you're ordinary, after all we've been through the last few minutes, if you're ordinary and a man offered some question about a problem he had, that we're not making fun of, but the kind of problems that people think they ordinarily have, not physical, that's easy to use as a springboard, but he feels like it's a secondary problem, an intellectual, an emotional problem, personality problem. Life annoys me. I can't be happy. There's one particular thing bothering me. And if he hears there is some solution, part of the self-regulation of being sane is this. In spite of what we've been doing and the kinds of way that you've been sort of dancing along the last few minutes, if you tell the man, all right, here is what the latest thinking, and I'll refer you exactly back to the Menninger Institute. I refer you to whatever to the the medical school and the psychiatric wing of John Hopkins, or I refer you to the latest work by doctors so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and they say, in regards to this kind of depression, they say that such and such seems to be the background. There seems to be this kind of combined effect of perhaps genetic, certain operations of one person's own brain in conjunction to a kind of pattern of their environment. And you hear that, and let's just say, by ordinary means, it sounds reasonable. In spite of you sort of laughing, in spite of me being able to point and you go, aha, part of the self-regulating for the ordinary is to hear the latest, reasonable, expert opinion, and you don't have to absolutely accept it, but you accept it as being respectable. You respect it enough to consider it, is the point. Not laugh at it, because that would be a sign of what? Insanity. In other words, what we've been doing, those of you that had any idea what you were doing for the last 10 or 15 minutes, if we had some ordinary people sitting back here and listening on this, then if they heard what I just said, they'd go, aha. In fact, he's admitting that everybody's nuts here, because they would think what I've been talking about, if they listen a certain way, they could say, well, I hear what you're saying. You're making some kind of intellectual or personal criticism about the world, the present state of psychology or humanity. But ordinary intelligence will say that is nothing to laugh at, because we're still struggling to find our way. We keep building upon new theories, and we do more research, we get more statistics on certain emotional, intellectual problems, but we're getting there. And that's part of the self-regulation, is to take the collective thinking, and whether you agree with it, whether you're wired up to agree right then or not, is of no consequence. But you are wired up to take external authority as being a serious matter. You do know that. Even atheists, they make jokes, but even atheists. Don't make me dig up the jokes. Even atheists take religion serious enough to be against it. See, that they'll go out and start. They want to get together a march. They want to start the anti-religion movement, and they want Jews, and they want to have elections. As long as, if you're ordinary, that's part of the way that you regulate, that you check that I'm still sane, I'm still here in the mainstream of life, is that I do take out there seriously. You don't have to agree, because half of the time, to half of it, you're not going to agree if you're just sane. If you're just ordinary in the middle of the bell curve, that's what being in the middle of the bell curve is. It's half of conventional thinking you reject. But you're supposed to. Whatever the conventional thought is, half the people have got to not think it, or it wouldn't get thought. The two brothers that went out to find the truth. It takes two. But part of the way to self-regulate, part of the way that the ordinary mind checks on itself that I'm sane, is that it takes this as being serious. It can deny it and say, that's wrong. They got the wrong theory. They got the wrong operational thesis now about depression. I mean, they do not fool me. You're right. They don't fool you. As long as you take the external source of authority seriously, you are a part of the self-regulating system. And it is your own mind regulating itself, whether you agree or reject whatever it is apparently out there. I reject religion, I reject politics, I reject specific areas of politics, I reject specific directions that religion takes. It doesn't matter. As long as you are still part of the self-referring system, then your mind, your secondary world in you, is continually checking on itself. It is continually taking its pulse, checking its blood pressure, its temperature. That's how you know you're sane. You can be mad at the ordinary level, you can be irritated, you can be happy, you can be enthused, but it's all on the basis of the self-regulating system. It's all on the basis that the secondary system has to, part of talk's job, is to establish what appears to be external sources of authority, which is the only way that the self-regulation of the secondary world continues. Because if this were not true, well, we got 2 minutes to even make it worse. Everything the ordinary mind knows, it got from somewhere else. And ordinary people can go, well, Jesus, that's ridiculous. Or they can say, well, Jesus, that's obvious, so what? And then go, well, Jesus, sure, it's true, but that's the difference between a man of some sophistication and a man that has none. It's where you go to get what you know. But then you can say, well, wait a minute. If you agree to that, then you realize you don't know anything. Oh, no, that's ridiculous. See, the road keeps splitting because I can keep going with this thing and say, no, that's ridiculous. Now, I got a lot of information, I got a lot of the facts that people have already done, but that's not all I know, because I had to personally divine. I had to decide which ideas were proper, which were suitable for me to accept, and which were not. It is a continual process of the mind regulating itself, and it does it by self-reference. And once you see that, then all forms of self-reference are not some penny-ante attack on people's prejudice or bias or unsophisticated thought. It's simply a statement on how the secondary world of man operates. That it's all opinionated. That it's all based upon self-reference. That's the only way that an expert knows what he knows. Is, well, yes, I'm John Q. Expert. It's the only way he knows, and it's the only way Bubba out in the bar says, Bulgarians are nuts. We don't need that kind of attitude. You don't know what you're talking about. And he does. I don't mean that he's correct, but he knows what he's talking about because he's him. If you say, well, you're an idiot, and assuming that he doesn't hit you, he thinks, am I an idiot? And he might think, well, maybe I am an idiot, but I'm me. And if that's my opinion, that's me. That's how he knows he's him. What if you could say, hey, would you trust me that you'd be a lot better off if you didn't have those kind of one-sided opinions? And he went, all right, I trust you, I like you. And you could reach down in his nervous system and rip out some of these opinions. If you could rip them all out, everything that you might call opinion, let me rip out all of your provincial thinking, all of your unreliable, uneducated opinions about other people and politics. Let me rip them out. And he said, all right, do it. I trust you. You follow. We're out of tape. Good night. Good night. Figure it out yourself.